whether it's somebody new or like with a little bit less experience, you know, like typical things that people need to look out for, or like mistakes that you see, or like pitfalls, or things that people should be cognizant of as they get into some of this stuff?
Yes. The first thing, you touched on it a little bit before. One of the ways that you can get completely burned on a deal, particularly on Long Island, and Long Island is my main focus. I do a decent amount in the city, but Nassau and Suffolk are my bread and butter. And out here, the building departments are just all over people that are renovating. Okay, they have guys, building inspectors, that are just driving around looking to see if people are renovating houses and didn't pull permits. And one of the most common misunderstandings is that if you are just renovating the existing structure, that you don't need a permit, and that is not the case at all. Okay, if you are taking the kitchen and putting in a new stove and sheetrock and flooring and cabinets, you need to pull a permit. Okay, and a lot of people don't, and you can really get held up. And you can speak to any investor, and I guarantee you that at least half of them have had this happen, where they get caught not doing work without a permit, and then they get that nice big stop work order that gets put on the front door. And those things can hold you up for a really long time. Okay, the one that sticks out to me was, I had a client probably about a year and a half ago, was finishing the property. It was a property in Levittown. He just got renovated it, but he didn't change the footprint, he didn't extend it or do anything. Renovated it. He was literally pouring the asphalt to pave the driveway. He was done. And the building inspector drove by, looked it up, saw that he didn't have any permits, put that nice shiny thing on the door, and we couldn't close for over 2 months. Wow. And it was in contract. We were ready to go. The thing was done. So that cost him 2 months of hard money interest, taxes, insurance. So right there, that might have, estimating probably 10, 12, 15 grand that cost him right off the bat. So that's a really big thing. You can go down to the building department and see what's on file. One of the other things, particularly when you have clients that are buying, and a lot of investors, they're buying distressed properties. They're buying short sales, or they're buying estate sales. To the extent that you can underwrite your file a little bit before you go into contract, will give you a better chance of actually converting it. And what I mean by that is, a lot of distressed properties, in addition to the fact that the house might be underwater, that seller might have other issues. There might be judgments against him, liens, and other things like that. So a lot of times you'll go into contract, and it turns out when we get the title report, which is a month later after we've signed contracts, ordered title, and done all of that, that you find out that this seller has he has a judgment because his car got repossessed for 20 grand. He hasn't paid New York State income taxes for 10 years, so he's got 50 grand against him there. And it turns out that this deal doesn't make sense anymore, because in order for my buyer to get good title, all of those judgments have to be paid off in addition to the outstanding mortgage. So that house that he was getting for $250,000, now with all of these judgments on top, and you can always try and negotiate the judgments down, but now that house might be 275 or 300 and doesn't make sense anymore. You could have found that out if you run if you just run a lien search, even before you go into contract, to see what's there. You can get a lien search, $200-$300. Find out what's there, because it might not make sense.
Yeah.
Those are two big things.
No, I think it's important. I think obviously, like anything, even for us, your local area is going to change so much, whether it's just, property taxes, permits, building codes, things like that. We had one example. We were buying a 60-unit property down in Jacksonville, Florida, and we thought we were going to be able to knock down and redevelop it. Potentially. We were buying it not because of that, but we thought that was an opportunity, because there was literally a senior housing facility, maybe not even half a mile up the road, being built.
Okay.
And we knew how many units and what the acreage was, and just rough math. And then, after few weeks, maybe even a month worth of like talking to people. We hadn't gone under contract and we never ended up buying the deal, unfortunately. But found out that there was a city line where you crossed to go over, and the unit density was significantly higher over that line. So it was no longer we couldn't replicate what they were doing. So I mean, you're literally talking about a stone's throw away, and it's just night and day. It was like half of what you could build, and it just no longer made nearly any sense. And it was tight already. So I think it's so important for anybody listening to make sure you understand local code, ordinances, municipalities, permits, the whole nines before you do anything crazy.
Yeah, it's super important. And, a lot of times, particularly because on Long Island, the competition is so fierce that you have you have some guys that are doing volume that their margins are super tight. I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying, I'm just taking this deal because I got to keep my crew busy, and if I make 15 or 20 grand on this house, I'll be ecstatic.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is, I mean, look, he's obviously got more overhead, but that to me is insane.
Yeah.
Because 15 to 20 grand, you could get wiped out in a second. You can be behind the eight ball, that 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 easily.
Mm-hmm.
Easily. I mean, construction, half the time, and you go on Instagram and Facebook and watch any of these investors. Oh, I bought this house, and I didn't know that the foundation had a monstrous crack in it, or I didn't realize that this wood was completely rotten, and we have to redo this or redo that. Like, there's so many things that could really put a dent in it. You just got to be careful. You always have to have a contingency budget in there, because they're usually older houses that haven't been kept up, and things break and things go wrong. So you need to have a backup there.
Yeah. Is there any best practices you've seen from afar that you think some of your clients have done significantly better than others, or anything like that, whether it's contingencies, certain types of lending, certain types of systems? I don't know how much you get into it and stuff like that, but you obviously have good exposure to a number of different people. I'm not sure if anything's stuck out.
I think that the guys that are doing a good job are the guys that deliver.
Mm-hmm.
I have a fair amount of investors that do a really good job, and what that means is that ultimately they wind up having a really good relationship with their lenders. Okay, which means a lot of hard money lenders, depending on how sophisticated they are, some will before they'll even consider giving you a loan, they're like a regular bank. They're going to do an appraisal. They're going to run your credit. They're going to, see, what your debt to income ratio is, what your resources are, all that type of stuff. And then once you get to a point, a lot of my clients at this point, they can pick up their phone and text their lender and say, I'm trying to close on this house in East Meadow tomorrow. This is the number. This is what I think I'm going to spend to renovate it. This is what I think it's going to sell for. Can you do it for me?
Mm-hmm.
And those types of relationships are tremendous, because a lot of times, particularly in the distressed market area, you'll have a house that you might get a call on Monday, and it's going to auction on Friday, or you have a short sale and an approval expires 2 days from now, and you might need to get your financing in order really quickly. So this expands to everything. If you deliver, if you do a good job, I think that you're going to be successful. Going earlier to your point of having a team, you need to know who you're going to beforehand. A lot of people don't necessarily realize that getting financing, there's lots of lenders out there, particularly on Long Island, because it's such a popular thing. But it's not as simple as just calling them up, the first time that you meet them and saying, I need a loan. Can you do this for me? You need to establish a relationship. Obviously, you need to have an attorney in your corner, that knows what he or she is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the investment side of things is a lot different than, your first time home buyer side of things. There's a lot more pitfalls on the investor side. When you have your first time home buyer, they're buying a house. There's probably not judgments on title. hopefully there's not violations, you know, a lot of the things that come with buying distressed properties, you know, at lower amounts, you know, come with warts. So there's, you know, there's just a lot of things you got to look out for. I'm trying to think what, you know, I mean, obviously the construction, as we said before, like, I think that as you get further into it, you know, a lot of the guys that do this on a regular basis, they'll walk through a house in 10 minutes and they know, or they know, you know, pretty closely what it's going to cost to renovate that house. They have, you know, strategies in place, like, you know, this is what we're going to do in this room. This is what we do in this room. And they, you know, they just kind of have it down. That comes with time.